Boker Tov. Today's daf is Daf Mem Dalet in Yevmot, as we learned for four Shlema, for Yosef ben Chaim Michal and Elazar ben Reuma. We'll start with the mission at the bottom of Gimel and Beis. Let's say there was a bunch of brothers, and they were married to different women. Obviously, four different brothers married to four different women, not related. The women aren't related. Umesu, and all the brothers died. Let's say there was one remaining, as we'll see. Umesu, they died. He can miyam all four of them. Again, when polygamy was mutter, according to the Torah, polygamy is mutter. If let's say a man had four brothers and they all died, car accident, a plane crash, whatever, they died, and they left four women without any children, none of them had any children, he can marry all four if he so chooses. He has a chiyuv to either be miyam or be choletz each one of them. Each one of them, you have to do one or the other because each one is a separate house. So he must go if the goal should have meaning, the oldest brother who is obligated to do the yibum or chalitza, he can marry all of them. Talks about four. We'll see the significance of that. The man, let's say, had two wives, umeis, and he died. You don't have to do bi or chalitza on both. We mentioned this before, but this is the source. There's the Mishnah here. That you don't have to do bi and chalitza on both. If a man had two wives, if four different brothers each had a wife and they all died, so you have to do yibum or chalitza on each one of those wives. They came from four different brothers. If one brother had 10 wives and he died, you do yibum or chalitza on one of them. Okay, that we've learned before. Let's say guy had two wives and he died, and you have to do yibum or chalitza on one. So you know what? I'll just do chalitza. Guy says, "I'll just do chalitza. I don't want to marry them." Who should you do chalitza on? Well, let's say one of them was already divorced from a prior marriage. Do chalitza on her. Why? Because if you do chalitza on the other woman who was never divorced, you'll forbid her from marrying a Kohen. So this way, the one who already was divorced, she's already forbidden from marrying a Kohen. So might as well give chalitza to her. So one was ksher meaning kasher lakuna, and one was possible because she was already divorced. And my yacholot give chalitza to the psul one. And my yam if he wants to make yibum, so give yibum to the ksheira. It doesn't mean he should give. He has to, means even to the ksheira. It doesn't make any difference if he's miyabim. If he gives yibum, he only does one out of the two. Do either one. But if you do chalitza, give chalitza to the one who's already pasul for the kohen, because even though a chalitza only pasels rabbanan to a kohen, but it's still pasul. And why would you ruin the one who could marry a kohen? The other one's already ruined from marrying Kohen. So give chalitza to the one who already is a grusha. So the Gemara first says, there's only four brothers and they all died. Who's going to do yibum? Arba'am salkadai. Can it be on four brothers if they're all dead? And four out of the brothers. So let's say there were 5 brothers or 10 brothers. 4 of them died. The oldest one is tasked. The oldest surviving brother is tasked with doing yibum or chalitza if he wants to get all 4. So it's just biyaro. Says Gemara, v'shafkele, do we allow a person to marry 4 different women and have 4 wives? I mean, he might even be married before. Not so simple. It's hard enough taking care of one wife, supporting one wife. If he has to support 4 more wives, do we allow that? By the time we learn in the Parsha of Yibam, it says there, if he's going to do chalitza, the Zakanim call him in, not sure what to do. So hein v'lo shluchan, don't send messengers. The Zakanim themselves have to talk to him. They speak to him. They give him proper advice, for him. In other words, give him let's say this guy's 20 and she's 60, let's say, right? Or 50, much older. So, in other words, a man died, no children. He was 70. She was, let's say, 55. And he had one brother, 20 years old. Does it make sense for a 20-year-old boy to marry a 55-year-old girl? No. So we give him good eight. So we say, if he was young, she was old. Who's talking if he's old? He was, say, 95. He yelled and she's 20. So Asurlo, okay, doesn't Omrlo, not Asurlo. Omrlo, we tell Malach Yada, what are you, old man? It doesn't have to be 95, it could be 60 also. What is he doing with the 20-year-old? Malach, what are you going to do with the 20-year-old? Malach Kano, where we tell the young guy, what are you going with a woman who's 40 years older than you? Take somebody. In other words, choose somebody who's similar to you in age also, not just in personality. Don't put strife and arguments in your house. In other words, that's not going to work out.
It's only advice, though.
It's only advice. It's not a requirement. But the point is, we tell them not to. We give them good advice. So why do we allow this man, if he had 4 brothers who died with no children, he's going to marry all 4 of them? Is that what we tell him? How is he going to support 4 women? So let's read that guy was wealthy, huh?
I said he puts them to work.
He puts them to work, right? But in those days they couldn't earn enough for their upkeep. They couldn't earn enough for their upkeep. We had the Gemaras and Ksubas and getting about that. If a woman says, "Listen, I don't want your money. I make more money than you. Don't tell me that you're going to take my money and you'll support me. I'll tell you what. Let's keep separate bank accounts. I make more than you anyway." That's how it is today. In those days, it wasn't like that. So it's possible he was wealthy and he could support him. So this is not like we're telling a 60-year-old man, "What are you going with this 20-year-old almana?" Or the reverse, a 20-year-old man with a 60-year-old almana. That's good advice, telling him not to do that. But over here, if the guy can support 4 women, fine. So why 4? Why do you say 4, not 3, not 2, not 7, not 8? If he could support 20, should he take 20 wives too? So that's also good advice. Even if he could afford to support financially more than 4, right? Pardon? Yes, and look what it did. Right? It caused him trouble. So at least he'll be able to be with his wife intimately at least 1 week a month, because Rashi says because they're supposed to be with their wives, be intimate with their wives. Let's say every Friday night. So there's 4 weeks in a month. So if there's 4 women, at least they'll all have 1 week or 1 Friday. Or some Farshim say when a man's married to several wives, he spends a week in each with each one. So this way, 4 weeks a month, at least nobody will once a month, at least they'll be together. So that's the idea of 4 women. So the Mishnah said, Misha Yinasu Shtei Nashim. So if a man was married to 2 women, right, and he died, you do chalitza or be on one of them. Why? Why not be even to both? Where do we get this from? Why should you give these both? Man died, he had 2 wives. So you could do, he had these 2 wives. Why can't the brother who's taking his place marry the 2 wives too? This is Kacha Yeselesh Asher Lo Yivnes Beis Achav, Beis Echad Ubona. Don't build 1 house, he had 2 wives, it's like having 2 households. So therefore, he only builds, it's based on the pasuk. Asher Lo Yivnes Beis Achav, right? Beis Echad Ubona, but he shouldn't build 2. So why do you give? So maybe, okay, I understand you shouldn't build 2 houses, but why not give chalitza to both? Why do you say you'll give chalitza to 1? Again, the pasuk is Beis Chalutz Hanol, the house that the shoe was removed from. He removes 1, so 1 shoe, 1 house he removes. You have to do 2. If you do 1, that's good enough. Okay, so I understand why you shouldn't do chalitza twice, or we should do even twice. But why don't you say so give yibam to 1 and chalitza to the other? You let everybody get a chance, right? Or he turns out give chalitza to 1 and yibam to the other. If he doesn't want to marry her, he could do chalitza. It's if he wanted to. He could marry her. That means that kol olayim al chalitza. When do you do chalitza? Only if you could marry her. But over here, once you married 1, you can't marry the other one, as we just explained, because so once you can't marry the other one, there's no Indian of yibam either. So no chalitza. So you say give chalitza to 1 and yibam to the other. Once we say if you did chalitza to 1, you can't be miyabam, you can't do chalitza to the other one. Well, if you can't do chalitza, you can't do yibam, right? Things go together. If he doesn't want to, he does chalitza achavs yibam. So over here, if he did yibam, the first one he wants, he did yibam on, he can't do yibam on the second one. So if he can't do yibam, there's no reason to do chalitza also. But then people shouldn't say this household is partially built and partially removed, partially not built. So this Gemara says, who cares what people say? What does it mean? So people shouldn't say it's partially built, partially not built. It says, right, if he would make even first and then on 1 and then do chalitza to the other, you're right, that wouldn't be a problem. So let him say it. We're afraid they'll do chalitza first and then do even. Once he does chalitza, there's an issue not to marry her, right? Once he does chalitza, we had that before. Once you do chalitza, there's an isser of not marrying her. Again, that's based on the pasuk of lo yivna. Once he gave chalitza, he can't marry that same woman. So so we're afraid of that, and he can't do yibum at all. Basically, not just the only woman, he can't marry anybody.
Say that's a serious thing.
Right. No, that's what he means. In other words, we don't care what people will say. He says is partially built and partially not built. What do we care what people say? The answer is we don't care what people say. We wouldn't care if people would say if he made yibum first and then he did chalitza. He did yibum. Okay, fine. He's not supposed to build another house, but maybe he could do another chalitza. But the problem is if he did chalitza first, then the pasuk says lo yibum. Once he does chalitza, he shouldn't build this house at all. He shouldn't perform yibum. So we're afraid he might do that. So again, once he does one yibum, you don't do another yibum because bayis echad or bay marashaitim. Once he does one chalitza, he doesn't do any more because bayis cholitz and all bayis echad cholitz and cholitz shnei button. Again, the idea is that each time that says bayis one house, one yibum, one chalitza. But why not do one yibum and one chalitza? Because we're afraid that if you do yibum first, and then you can't do yibum again, so there's no point in doing chalitza because kol she'ein lo yibum and lo chalitza. And the second reason is if you did chalitza first, right, then there's an isser to do yibum afterwards. So we're afraid you might do that, and therefore there's a problem. The problem of yibum first and chalitza second is the problem of kol she'ein lo yibum and lo chalitza, because once you do yibum, you can't do yibum again. So if you can't do yibum, you can't do chalitza. Kol she'ein lo yibum and lo chalitza. The second reason is you might do chalitza. If you do chalitza first, then there's an issue to yibum afterwards, and therefore you don't allow it. The ema.
The other side of the question is we always care about what people say.
Yeah, but no, yes, yeah. Well, you care what people say only
Because
to a
they might
certain
get the
extent.
halacha.
Only to that extent. Only because they might. But so what? You know, there would be no. Right, they might get the halacha wrong, but here the Gemara is not concerned about that. It's not that you get the halacha wrong. That what do we care what people say? The problem is that they might do the wrong thing here directly. In other words, the Gemara seems to discount the idea of yomu, partially built, partially not built. So what's wrong with that? So it's partially built. It's not a terrible thing. The answer is that it's only we're concerned about really what will happen. So again, if you did yibum first, you can't do chalitza subsequently because you can't do yibum on the second one. So kol she'ein lo yibum and lo chalitza. And if you do chalitza first, then there's an issue to do yibum. Maybe it means this. Maybe the whole mitzvah of yibum is only when there's one woman. A man died and he left one wife. No, he had no children with one wife. Maybe there's no mitzvah of yibum. Maybe that's what it means. Bayis echad, right? It says bayis echad asher lo yivnas bayis echad bayis echad ubona. Maybe that's what bayis echad is teaching me. That only when there's only one house, meaning when there's one woman, then you do yibum. Otherwise, not zin kain. If that would be the case, why did we go through all the machinations back in the first place? Saras ervadas rachman alamli. We had the whole idea that Sarah of an erva is also is there's no yibum, right? If a man, Reuben was married to Shimon's daughter, and he had another wife. So now Reuben dies. Shimon can't marry his own daughter. So we said the other wife also, that Sarah is also forbidden. What did you say? She's forbidden. Anytime when there's two wives, there's no yibum if that would be the case. The fact that you have to tell me that Sarah's erva also tells me that normally when there's two wives, you could perform yibum. If you tell me that two women in general, two co-wives, there's no benei chalitz yibum. Sarah's erva me boy certainly not. Salam alone, no, maybe you would need that. I might think, sure, two women who are strangers, there's no other relations there, just two wives. There's no yibum there, but I might think if Shimon's daughter felt him to yibum from his brother Reuven, she's excluded anyway. So, I mean, Avroi kaima, but this yabim sarasa. The one who's the relation, like his daughter, she's excluded anyway because she's his daughter. He can't marry his own daughter. But this yabim sarasa. Avroi kaima, she's outside, and the tzara should perform because it's only like one woman who fell yibum. I might think, if two women who you could marry, either one of them fell to you to yibum, then there's no mitzvah of yibum. Because the pasuk is bayis echad, not shtei batim. But if an erva and a tzara fell, the erva doesn't count. She can't marry you, so maybe you should be a mitzvah. Kamashmal and Dasir, that tells me no that the tsar is still also, like you said, ever tsar, but maybe two taka are also. Maybe if there's two women who fell to you normally, even normally there's no yibum. Not only where's an erev and a tsar, but even two regular women, there's no yibum there. Ella yivimta riba. It says an extra yivimto. It says also yivimto. Shah says yivimto twice to teach me that even where there's two yivamas, there's still a mitzvah of yibum. And we said if let's say two women fell to yibum, and one was a grusha and one was just an almana. Obviously, they're both almanas now. Their husband died with no children. But if one of them was a divorcee and you decide to give chalitza, you should give chalitza to the divorcee, not to ruin the other one. Don't pour out your well water if other people can eat it, even though you don't need it anymore. You're throwing out your garbage, but if somebody else could use it, so that's what you should do. So, pardon?
I'm just.
Yeah, but
it's a wonderful saying.
That's what we learn. Okay. But if you decide to marry them, then it doesn't make any difference. You can pick whichever one you prefer. You can marry that one. Says the Mishnah. Now we're getting into a machlokus here between Rav Kiva and the Rabbanan, and we'll see another shita also. We'll see a shita of Rav Yeshua. There's a three machlokus. What makes a mamzer? The generally accepted view is any isser of any forbidden sexual act that the punishment is kares or worse. Kares, which is like God killing a person, or misa b'dei adam, like adultery, like regular adultery. So that kind of forbidden sexual act would create a mamzer, and kedushin is not tofes. That's what the Rabbanan holds. Generally, the Rabbanan. Tanami holds that. Rav Shapiro holds only if it's punishable by a court. Only it's mises bezdin. But kares wouldn't make a mamzer, even though the kedushin wouldn't be chal. Rabbi Kiva says even an Isser Lav, we don't hold like Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva holds any Isser Lav. You're not supposed to marry a Kohen marrying a Grusha, mamzer, even because Kedushin is not chal. According to Rabbi Kiva, Kedushin is not chal even on a regular Isser Lav, that we owe the punishment is only Malchus. He says Kedushin is not Tofes, and whenever Kedushin is not Tofes, the kid's a mamzer. That's Rabbi Kiva Shita. So let's look now. Hamachzik means missionis. A man takes his wife back after he divorced her and she marries somebody else. We're talking about Yisrael, right? Not a Kohen. A man divorced his wife. She married somebody else. The other guy divorced her or died. And now he took her back. You're not allowed to. It's an Isser Lav. We hold it's only an Isser Lav. Rabbi Kiva holds no, that Kedushin is not chal. And whenever Kedushin is not chal, it makes a mamzer. So Hamachzik B'Shasav, I know Sechel or you're married Chalutza. You're not supposed to, we just heard, you're not supposed to marry. You give her Chalitza, Kivin Shalabana Shuv La Yivna. There's an Isser Lav there. I know say Krovas Chalutza. What about if you marry the relation of your Chalutza? Is that also Minator? It's only Rabbanan, according to the way we hold. Rabbi Kiva seems to hold this. Yotzi, you have to send her away. You can't stay married to any of these. Vavlad mamzer to Rabbi Kiva. In all these cases, Rabbi Kiva. Why? Because Rabbi Kiva holds that a vav is a mamzer from Chai V'Lav, and even Chai V'Lav is not tofes. The Gemara is going to ask about no sake probus chalitzaso. You gave chalitza to a woman. You can't marry her sister or her mother. Okay, the Vlad's and moms are there. Wow, you were never married to her. But what's the yisur of chalitzaso? The no sake chalitzaso is asher leivna. Probus chalitzaso is because she's like your wife, right? She's like your wife. No, okay, so Rabbi Kiva says that the mamzer. A chamam no, ain't about mamzer. Vam's not mamzer. It's only an isser lav. Umodim, their motive is a mamzer where benosek probus grushaso. You're grush if you divorced a woman, she's like you're married to you. You can't marry her mother, even if you divorce her. You can't marry your sister unless she died. If the wife died, either then or subsequently, you can marry her sister. But that's a special exception because it's aleh b'chayeh. But otherwise, your grusha, the one you divorced, is like your wife. So therefore, the chamar moda that if you marry your wife's sister, even if she's no longer, if you divorce her, Vlad's and moms are there. That's Isser Karas. So the chamar moda in that case. It says more. Is that really true? Krovas chalutzaso. Chalutza, you're not supposed to marry. That's a lot. What about Krovas chalutzaso, her sister? It's only like you were married to her midrabanan. The pasuk is you're not supposed to marry a chalutza. If you gave her chalitza, you shouldn't marry her. Her sister's not the chalutza is not really your wife. Okay, but the rabbis made exera that chos chalutza is like a chos grusha, just like grusha, which is a daraisa, you can't marry her sister while she's alive. So it said chalutza too. But Rabbi Kiva says the Vlad's a mamzer. Vlad's not, the Rabbanan don't make a mamzer. Mamzer's only if there's you're over in the Torah. So Rabbi Kiva holds that Oscar was Chosel Vlad's mamzer. Armish Lakish Kanchan Rabbi Yodan Achos Grusha Midivei Torah. We had this the other day. Achos Chutz is only Midivei Sofrim. So if Achos Chutz is only an Isser Midivei Sofrim, how could that make a mamzer? So it's Tani Krovas. The first answer to the Gemara is Krovas Grushaso. You change the word. It doesn't mean Charos Chaltzaso. Change the words in the Mishnah. Krovas Grushaso. Krovas Grushaso. Everybody's moda that's a mamzer because that's your wife's sister. And even though you divorced her, she's still like your wife. Chacham is mustaver that way that it means that the Tani said says moda bedosik krovas. The Chamar moda tim bedosik krovas Grushaso. It's mashma. You're talking about that. Shavlad mamzer yam bishlam ayriba. If Rabbi Kiva was talking about krovas Grushaso, let's say the sister of your grusha. It makes sense. The Rabbanan Moda in that third case. If Rabbi Kiva was not talking about my modem, what do you mean he's moda to them? What do you mean he's moda? They're not talking about that case. It says maybe what he's telling you is no. Maybe he wasn't talking about that. He was talking about Krovas Cholitzaso. But the Chiddush is, he said the Chamar just moda that there is a mamzer. You say there's mamzer only even from Chayv Lavan. Well, the Chamar moda there is a mamzer from Chayv Krisis. If that's the case, but I tell you, we already learned that. Ezo moms we're going to have in the next few days. Ezo moms are kol she'er basar. Any incestuous relationship should live below. You're not allowed to do Rabbi Kiva. Whoever you're not allowed to marry, that makes a momser. Anybody you're not supposed to marry, it makes a momser. Shimon Tamari is the gear. So Shimon Tamari Omer. Only if you're chayiv karas, the union that would cause you to be chayiv karas, that would make a mamzer. Balach is like Shimon Tamani. That's how we paskin. But the point is, we already know that. So what's the Rabbana teaching here? Maybe the Tana is simply giving a stam mishnah. Chamam is like a stam mishnah. The Rebbe was telling us a stam mishnah goes like shetimani. He's telling us that the halach is like shetimani. Zim came listening shach chavi creases. Just say all chavi creases. When you have your beer with a chavi crease, your kids are mamzer. Provus kushaso lamali. Why did he mention kushaso? Elam ishma min ayirba. Must be the Rebbe Kiva was talking about that. So maybe when he said you you make a mamzer, it's from provus kushaso, which is an isser. It's an Isser Karas, but it's certainly an Isser Lav. Maybe that was what Rabbi Kiva was speaking to. But maybe he wasn't speaking of Grushaso, Krovas Grushaso. And he was really talking about Krovas Chalutzaso, which according to the Chara is only drop on him. Why did the Rabbanan say Krovas Grushaso? Rabbi Kiva wasn't mentioning it. Well, since he mentioned Machsu Grushaso and Nosei Chalutzaso and Krovas Chalutzaso, so you round it out with the Krovas Grushaso also, and that's a Chamar moda to that. But maybe Rabbi Kiva was really talking about Krovas Chalutzaso, which the Chara is only drop on him. How could that make a mamzer? El Krovas Chalutzaso Rabbi Kiva is a mamzer. How a mamzer? Why? The pasuk says that if he gave her chalitza, it's like a bias. Base chalitza, no, it's the house that they removed the shuah because hakasuk for a base. The Torah calls it his house. So Rabbi Kiva learns that Krovas Chalutzaso, which we say a chalutza cannot marry a kohen, that's Rabbanan, right? That you can't remarry the chalutza after you gave her chalitza. If you gave her chalitza, you can't marry. That's a pasuk. Shelivnas Beisachav. Rabbi Kiva says, you know what? You can't marry a Krovas Grushas. Krovas Chalutzaso is also a doraisa because the pasuk is based chalitza. No, if you give chalitza to a woman, it's like you're married to her. It's like you married her and divorced her, and therefore you can't marry her sister either. That's what Rabbi Kiva shita. That's what Rabbi Kiva holds, that even a lav, and he holds that's a lav. Remember, Rabbi Kiva holds that, and there's an advantage to this too, because all these are lavim. You see, if you say it's Krovas Grushaso, that's already a kares. If Masu Grushaso is only a lav, no Sechotzaso is only a lav. If Rabbi Kiva is talking about no, if he doesn't mean no Krovas Grushaso, but Krovas Grushaso, that's already kares, right? So the things aren't all the same. Okay, you could say some are lav, some are kares. Yes, but it makes more sense to say Rabbi Kiva is talking about all cases of only chayv lavin. Machsu Grushaso missionis is nosei chalutzaso and nosei krovas chalutzaso, which Rabbi Kiva holds that's also a lav. In all those cases, that makes a mamzer because according to Rabbi Kiva, even any chayv lavin that you're not allowed supposed to marry, kedushin is not chal, kedushin is not tofes, and the kid's a mamzer. The chacham say no. By isur lav, if let's say a kohen marries a grusha, we hold it as a good marriage. You have to give her a get. Okay, the kid's a halal, right? If they're not supposed to be married to her, but if he does, the marriage is halal. Rabbi Yosem, Rabbi Shimon bar Rebbe. Everybody's moda, everybody's moda that if he takes back his wife after she was married to somebody else, Shabbat pagum lakuna. Any children born of that union would be considered tainted or defective. They couldn't marry a kohen. That's what he says. Couldn't marry a kohen. Okay. Now, nobody's a Kohen over here. This is simply Masu Shasi. Israel divorced his wife. She married somebody else. The other guy divorced or widowed her, died, and he took her back. Okay, it's usher. We hold it's Chai V'Lavin, right? Get Malchus for that. But we wouldn't make a mamzer according to us, only according to Bekiva. What about, he says, but everybody's mother's pagam makuna. Why? Manakal modem. Who's even modem? Shimon money. Even though Chai V'Lavin doesn't make a mamzer, and this is only Chai V'Lavin. If a man divorces his wife and she marries somebody else, and then he takes her back subsequently after she was divorced or widowed from him, it's only Chai V'Lavin. We hold that's Malchus. But Shimon Tamani says, even Shimon Tamani holds a mamzer Chai V'Lavin. He's not a mamzer of a pagam miyahave. He is considered defective. What does that mean, defective? That if it's a girl, she's puzzled to marry a Kohen. She's like a halala, and she can't eat truma in her father's house. And if he's a boy Kohen, he shouldn't serve in the base of Mikdash. So pagam miyahave. Why? Why is everybody's motive? Even though he's not a mamzer over here, but he's still defective. He's like a halal. In what sense? So what's the kavachomer? From base of kavachomer, almana. Almana l'kohen gadol. The kohen gadol can only marry a virgin. He can't marry an almana. It's as lav as essay and a los essay. So manachal kohen. She ain't social call. She's not also to marry. She can even marry a kohen. She can marry Yisrael for sure. She can marry anybody. She just can't marry a kohen gadol. So it's not also for everybody. Still, b'na pagum. If she marries a kohen gadol, her son is considered pagum, meaning that he's halal. And if it's a daughter, she can't marry a kohen. And if it's a boy, he can't serve. Everybody, every Jew in Israel, every Jewish man has the issur of maskushas mishnist. You're not allowed to divorce your wife, and if she marries somebody else, you can't take her back. If your wife is divorced and she marries somebody else, you can never take her back. That issur applies to everybody. Zushi Yisur, and it didn't Shabbatim. Certainly, her son should be defective for kuna. Yeah.
In this case,
Is kedushin chal according to Bekiva not? Because according to Bekiva, even Chai V'Lavin kedushin chal. According to us, we pass like Shemot money. Yes, kedushin chal. Kedushin does work. Yes.
and the boy is a mamzer.
The boy's not. According to us, no. The kid's not a mamzer. Mamzer is only when kedushin is not chal, or if one of the parents was a mamzer, or only when there's no when kedushin is not chal. The way we hold, Rabbi Kiva holds. Well, everybody holds if kedushin is not chal, then the kid's a mamzer. But according to Rabbi Kiva, kedushin is not chal by lav, by isur lav. And we hold kedushin is not chal only by isur kares or by isur misas bezin, which is more severe, like adultery. You know that if a woman is married already, somebody and the guy goes over and says, "Here's a ring," of course, it doesn't work according to everybody. Okay, but the point is, even though the kid's not a mamzer, he says, even though maskushas even Shimon Tamari holds that's only a lav and there's no mamzer, but the kid's still defective. He can't serve if he's a kohen. He can't serve, and if it's a girl, she can't marry a kohen and she can't eat truma. Ikel Mefni says, why is that such a proof? So you're saying the kid is a halal? Ikel Mefni asks, Gasha, Amon is different because she herself becomes, it says lo yichalel, it doesn't say lo yachel, it says lo yichalel. Not only are her children defective, but she herself is defective. So that's different. But over here, the Masuk Shasma, she doesn't become defective herself. This woman who remarried you after she was married to somebody else is not a halala. She's divorced. Why is she not? She can't marry a Kohen anyway because you divorced her. So, but she doesn't become defective by you remarrying her. She's been defective before. But Almana Kohen Gadol, the act itself defects her and her child. Ba'od, and another reason. So maybe only Almana makes Almana Kohen Gadol makes a pagum, can't marry a halal, but maybe Masmushas Ba'od. And I'll tell you another reason why that logic doesn't work. The pasuk says, if you take your wife back after she was married to somebody else, it says toei bahi, it's an abomination. We darshan he toei v'ksiv. Only she is an abomination, so to speak, for acting this way, but her children are not. So maybe the children are not defective. And another reason why, I'll show you why they're not defective. Tanya, in other words, we have three reasons here to refute. You said that the kids are defective. Masu Shasam, this is everybody's motive. The kid is pagum lakuna. I'll show you three reasons why that doesn't work. Number one, your kal v'chomer from Amana is not such a good kal v'chomer because on Amana she herself becomes defective. Over here, the Masu Shasam doesn't become effective herself by this act of remarrying him. But it says only she is defect. She is an abomination for taking back. You're throwing the woman back and forth. but the children are not defective. But Tanya, we learn a Masik Shas Mishnah. Rabbi Kiva says like this: if you take your wife back after she was married to somebody else, or Anosa Chalutzas, like we saw in the Mishnah, you marry your Chalutza, you're not supposed to, a lav. Anosa Kravas Chalutzas, also a lav. Rabbi Kiva Ein Lo Ba Kedushin. There's no Kedushin there because Rabbi Kiva holds Ein Kedushin Tovsin B'Chayv Elavin. Ein Lo Ba Kedushin. But Ein Esrichi Get. Therefore, you don't need a get. If Kedushin not Tovsin, you don't need a get. The Psula, and she is puzzled. She is puzzled to marry a Kohen now, right? Because it's a forbidden act. With Vlad apostle, and her child is also supposed to kiss a mamzer. The kofin osalotzin, you force him to get rid of him. That's Rabbi Kiva sheet who holds you that is a mamzer even from chayv elav. No, yesh laba kedushin. There is kedushin there. It's only chayv elav. Therefore, you need a get. The shera, and she is kosher to a kohen. The Vlad kosher, and her child is kosher. Laman, who is her child kosher for? Lav lakuna doesn't mean even for kohen. So here's a third refutation to say that if you did one of these Isur Lav, the kid is still kosher to marry a Kohen. Who's not kosher to marry a Kohen? If a Kohen marries a Grusha, so that kid is a Halal. But here, a regular Lav, if it's not a Kohen, so the kid is maybe kosher to marry a Kohen, not Lav the Kohen says low. But Kahal, meaning he's not a Mamzer. That's maybe kosher, Vlad kosher just means not that maybe he can't marry, maybe he can't marry a Kohen. When you say he's kosher to marry other people. He's not a mamzer. So when you say she is kosher, who does that mean? Even makaf means for the kal, for anybody pshita mishum dezani efslo, just because she was mazana and she did a znus that she wasn't supposed to. She was masuk shas missionissus or a chalutz or whatever. She doesn't become a mamzer. She's not mamzer to also marry anybody in the world. Maybe she can marry a kohen, but not, she could marry other people. Elav lakuna means she can marry kuna. Midahi lakuna. Since for her, we're saying she's kosher to marry a kohen. Vladanami maybe just means kosher to marry a kohen. Since more meter who says hakadisa v'hakadisa. It could be she's kosher to marry she's kosher to marry a kohen because she's not like a grusha married a kohen. She's kosher to marry a kohen. And he's kosher to marry a general, the whole world, but maybe a Kohen, the child, maybe he can't marry a Kohen. That way, the Tani Resha, when we talk about Rabbi Kiva say he psula of Vlad apostle. Rabbi Kiva says that she's apostle, that's by Yisrael Lav, and the child is a mamzer. He psula laman. Who is she apostle? Elay Melakal. She's apostle marry to anybody in Bnei Yisrael. Mishum Dazan, because she was Mazana, Ifsula Lakal, she can't marry anybody in the world, any Jew in the world. Elav Lakuna, we mean over there, she's apostle to marry a Kohen. Uvlada apostle Laman, who is her bad apostle? Elaim Lakuna, Halakal Kosh Kosher, Homer Bekiva Vlad Mamzer. Kiva holds the kids a Mamzer. So the Vlad is certainly apostle means a Mamzer. So Elipchi, to what do you see? Lakal. So middle ratio, since in the ratio where Kiva you see that she is apostle to marry who? A Kohen. And he's apostle, the child is apostle to marry anybody, the kid's a mamzer. So Seifanam Mel Kedisa Vakadisa. So it could very well be in terms of this answer that we're saying, this third proof, as if to say that the child a third proof against the idea that the child of a Masuk Shas Mishanis is Pagim Lakohen. You see over here, that's not a good refutation of that. Because it could very well be that he can't marry a Kohen. It could very well be that he can't marry a Kohen. He is considered pogum. When they say that the child is kosher l'kal, but it could be pogum l'kohen. Also, the proof that you said that only he toeva, the masku shasamish, she's an abomination, not the child. Who says that it means not the child? He toeva nami. He toeva in sarasa toeva. Let's say a man was married to woman A, and he was married to also the woman B. Divorced B, she married somebody else. He divorced her or he died and he took B back. Okay, so we say over here that she's an abomination. Okay, what does that mean, Toeva? So Russ is not Toeva. If this man dies now, what would you do in that case? The brother was married to her in sin, so we say give her chalitza, right? Because midaraisa, you could marry her. But her co-wife is not possible. He Toeva, she's an abomination, but her co-wife A, that he was always married to, never divorced. That's what it means. And so also you can marry her, you can do yibum on her, you don't have to do chalitza. But maybe the children are toeva, maybe the children are an abomination, maybe the children are pogum. So therefore, that second, both the third answer and the second answer refuting the idea that the child is a pogum lekohen, those aren't good refutations. Maybe the kid is there's a second and third proofs that the kid maybe is not a pogum or bad proofs, because maybe the kid really is a pogum. El almana kasha, but almana is a good kasha. That's a good kasha. How could you say that the kid's pogum? How do you say that it's a kal v'chomer that the children of a machzor b'shas mishinas should be pogum lekohen by almana? Manach almana, where she's not also to everybody, the kid is pogum lekohen. Certainly over here, where this isser machzor b'shas mishinas applies to everybody. Who says malo almana shekeni atzmas chas, she herself becomes possible. So therefore, that refutes the kal v'chomer, and therefore we can't prove that the child is a pogum. Machzor b'shas mishinas is the kid pogum lekohen. No, the kal v'chomer is not a good kal v'chomer. But the other refutations are not a good refutations. But we don't need the other ones. We just slugged up the kal v'chomer. Maybe this is what Rabbi Yosef or Rav Shimon, the last line on Rav said, hakomodim. What did he mean by that? No. Rav Shimon, this one means Rabbi hakomodim. The ball al chayvik creatures of modim. Oh, everybody's moda that if you live with somebody who's an Isser Karis, for example, your sister-in-law, your brother-in-law, a sister, anybody like that, they're the children of mamzer. Manakal modim, Rabbi Yeshua. Even Rabbi Yeshua, remember I said it's a three machlokas, what makes a mamzer? Rabbi Kiva says it's a lav. Shimon HaTzimani says it's a chorus. Yeshua says only an Isser, Mises Besin. How come was Rabbi Yeshua? The Afagav of Rabbi Yeshua, mamzer, Chayvi Krisis. There's no mamzer. If Chayvi Krisis is not a mamzer, it's got to be Chayvi Mises Besin. Need the mamzer lave. It's not a mamzer, but pogam miyahave. Oh, that's what we mean over here. Everybody's mother of all Chayvi Krisis, that if it's not a mamzer, at least it's pogam lekohen. Right? We hold, Rabbi Shimon HaTzimani holds habal chayvik krisis if it's a mamzer, but even if you don't hold it's a mamzer, it's still pogam lekohen. Why? Because v'chomei almana, ma almana lekohen gadol she'eni sur shabakol, and almana us is not she's only us or the kohen gadol to other people still pogam. The Shabbanah is pogam. Zushi sur shabakol. Here, this is everybody, and nobody can marry chayvik krisis, and it didn't Shabbanah pogam. V'chiteim ayotam ma almana she'eni asmas chalelas. Here also she's mechalov, because if you live with any Isser Kares, the child is that person is considered a zona. In other words, whenever you live with somebody who you're not supposed to live with, if let's say a man lived with his sister-in-law, he's not supposed to. She's a zona and she can't marry Cohen. Now, even she's not a grusha, just live with someone he's not supposed to. A man is married to Leah, and then he's married to her, and then he sleeps with Rachel, her sister, who's not married. But it's Isser Kares. Now she becomes a zona, and also such coins. So just like a Ramana Kohen Gadol, she becomes a chalala, and she can't marry Kohen subsequently, even a regular Kohen. The same way, if you live with an Isser Kares, that woman also is a zona. Here we get into the issue we're going to discuss over the next couple of days. An Eved, a goy, an Eved, a slave, an Eved Knani, or a goy who lives with a Jewish woman, is that kid a mamzer, or is it just pagumi, just like he doesn't have a father? So many of the shittas are that it's a mamzer. We don't hold that way. In fact, that's better that the girl should live with a guy than live with a Jew who might be a mamzer, because we hold that it's not a mamzer. But here he says, even Shimon says that let's say a coin marrying a grusha or a machzor b'shas is only allowed, there's no mamzer there. That's only chayv more kedushin is chal, like machzor b'shas mishenisses and like coin marrying a grusha or coin marrying a grusha. Only by an isser lav do we say what? There, Shimon says there's no mamzer over there. Since kedushin not chal, dummy. In other words, Shimon HaTzimani says that normally there's only a mamzer where why? Even if he says that mamzer is not from chayv elav, only from chayv krisis, that's only why chayv elav where kedushin is chal. But by an eved or a guy who lives with a Jewish girl, even if he wants to marry her, kedushin is not chal. He's mode over here that makes a mamzer like chayv krisis, even though it's not chayv krisis. If a Jewish woman lives with a guy or with an eved, it's not chayv krisis. It's not like incest. It's not like living with a sister-in-law or somebody like that or a sister. Pardon? The offspring. Oh, so here he says. This is what Rav Chanan says, the kid is a mamzer. We don't hold that way. We'll see Lamaisa, we don't hold that way. But many of the sheets of the Gemaras, that makes a mamzer. We don't hold that way today. There's no such thing either. Otherwise, we'd have millions of mamzerim, right? Every guy who lives with a Jewish girl and has a baby would be considered a mamzer. We'd be the world will be full of mamzerim, right? But that's not the halach, is that it's not a mamzer, even though these shitas say that it is. All right, we'll pick them here tomorrow. Have a good day, everybody.